George Washington. George Washington was born in 1732 and raised in colonial Virginia. George Washington was not only commander-in-chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolutionary War, but he was also the first president of the United States of America. He served 2 terms from 1789 to 1797. After the war, the United States needed someone to lead them. George Washington was that person and became the first president. He knew he couldn't lead alone. The cabinet's role was to advise George Washington about many things. Each member had different duties, responsibilities, and titles. This tradition of a new president choosing his or her cabinet is carried out to this day. George Washington only had 4 people in his cabinet. Today, the cabinets include the vice president and the heads of 15 executive departments. George Washington chose 4 executives: Thomas Jefferson as Secretary of State, Alexander Hamilton as Secretary of the Treasury, Edmund Randolph as Attorney General, and Henry Knox as Secretary of War. As Secretary of State, Thomas Jefferson had to deal with all foreign affairs, like trading. As Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton had to organize the whole financial system of the country. As Attorney General, Edmund Randolph had to be kind of like a people's lawyer. In other words, he was in charge of all the legal affairs. Their job was extremely important. George Washington needed these experts to help him make decisions for the country. When George Washington chose his cabinet, he ended up shaping the future of the government. Being a great general on the battlefield made running a government more possible for George Washington. The skills of making decisions, pulling troops together, and keeping the morale high that was used as a commander-in-chief during the Revolutionary War was the same skills that were used as being President of the United States. Just 10 weeks after Washington's inauguration, the French Revolution began, and these battlefield skills were used again, but this time as a president. He once again made a bold move. That was not to take sides in the war. The United States needed time to develop, grow, and prosper on its own. He explained that it was the sincere wish of the United States to live in peace and amity with all the inhabitants of the earth. This decision became the first foreign policy of the United States. George Washington was a successful leader as the first president. For example, George knew how to boost America's morale, give people confidence, collaborate with senior officers, and make decisions that avoided unneeded conflict and promoted peace. He was a good example of being humble, having good leadership, and self-reliance. George Washington served 2 terms as president. In his first term, 2 opposing parties rose up, each with different views on how to run the government. In his second term, George Washington grew to hate the tension between the 2. He never wanted to be an all-powerful king. He wanted to show an example by peacefully transferring power to a successor. When George Washington left office, he gave a farewell address. He said 2 main things in his goodbye speech. Number 1, he said not to be over-excessive about political party stuff. Number 2, he said not to make any foreign alliances. The reason he felt strong about this is because he felt that staying neutral would help the United States safely, liberty, independence, and prosperity. Back then, the people did not listen to George Washington's advice. The 2 political parties got stronger, and the government sought out to make alliances. More than 200 years later, most people would agree that there are good things about having different points of view and having world allies. But it is also true that the division between the 2 main political parties in the United States can get vicious, like George Washington warned. The last election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump divided the nation. Different political views can divide friends and family. The United States has also been involved in many wars around the world, fighting on behalf of their allies. Today, we have military bases with American soldiers placed all around the world. After a short illness, George Washington passed away on December 14th, 1799. He was with his wife and many others who cared for him. I wonder if he ever thought he would become such an important figure in history. He helped the United States become what it is today. That is why you will hear him be called the father of his country.